Hello and welcome to another episode of the Entrepreneur's Inner Game podcast. You know, we love to talk about all things mindset for the entrepreneur and to inspire you and encourage you to hit your potential in your business. Today, we have an amazing guest. Larry Yu is an experienced internet entrepreneur with a deep knowledge of paid advertising, business operations, team building, and website and product design. He started his first business in college, scaling it to over 7 figures in between classes before selling it shortly after graduating. That initial venture became a springboard for many other internet marketing ventures. Among them is this super successful agency, Pinnacle Brands, which is a design agency specializing in high-end branding and websites for personal brands. Larry, a very, very warm welcome to the Entrepreneur's Inner Game podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. You obviously have experienced huge success at an early age, but with success can come struggle, stress, and I imagine it wasn't plain sailing. Can you share the main lessons that you learned as you built up that 7-figure venture while you were still at college?
So many lessons. That's definitely a can of worms to unpack. I'd say one of the since this is about mindset. I think like one of the big shifts in mindset that I had building that and like that actually kind of took it to the next level was thinking about scale. I think that like for me when I was just starting out, I was like trying to get together just like a couple $1,000s to get like the initial inventory and like advertising, and I was just thinking pretty small, thinking that like I don't know, like $5,000 in advertising was like a really big deal. And when you're thinking like that, that's not at scale, and it's really not going to generate like I guess like the type of income you're looking for. When I first got into the game, I remember people would be advertising like, oh, I'm making like 10K a month or something like that, top line, and you'd get excited about that. But in reality, when you take into consideration, the expenses that you have, you're really not taking home that much if you're shooting for a 10K per month top line revenue. You really want to think way bigger than that. You want to think like 100K a month or 500K a month. Like that's the type of really revenue you need to start generating if you want to create like kind of like life-changing type of income. And like the way you start kind of thinking big like that is just to start thinking big like that and breaking down the numbers it takes to actually achieve that type of revenue and what type of business model you need to get into in order to hit that type of revenue goal.
So how did you make that shift from thinking, say, 5K a month would be great to thinking 100K a month? Because that's a big leap in thinking in one way, because, a lot of people think that numbers are scary. 10K a month feels kind of doable, but 100K a month feels completely out of the question. How did you make that leap in your thinking to thinking, well, 100K is doable or 100K a month is doable?
Totally. It just you got to get around people who are doing it. Because so I joined a lot of mastermind groups, got around people who were spending like 10K a day on advertising, and when they're talking about that, and you're seeing what they do, it just normalizes it for you. Like you got to feel it in your gut because like right off the bat, especially if you're first starting out, the thought of spending like 10K a day on ads is like kind of ridiculous, like it's very scary. You probably wouldn't do it if somebody asked you to do it. And just not normalized. But when you get around people and you see them doing it, you become close friends with them, it's possible. And you also realize that they're really not that much different than you. So, and then when you do that, you start pushing the limits, when you start getting a little bit more aggressive in your advertising and your promotions, etc. And then before you know it, you're like, oh, whoa, I'm actually spending that per day too. You get there.
And did you have self-doubt along the way? And if you did, how did you deal with that?
Of course. It self-doubt, more fear, I think.
Mm.
Um, just because you're not sure what's possible. And so again, just getting around people who are doing it and having it normalized for you, knowing that, like, feeling in your gut that, like, oh, this is really possible. People are doing this. These people aren't different than me in any way. It's not like they're coming out with like some ridiculously ingenious ideas. They're just talking ideas like you. They're just, getting, which maybe we can get to later. They're getting really clear about the numbers and metrics they need to hit in order to, spend that type of money, but also generate that type of money, generate an ROI on that type of investment in advertising.
Yeah, in ways, it's a kind of leap of faith, isn't it? To think,
It
okay, if I do this, then I may be able to get this. But a lot of people don't take that leap of faith because the fear is too great.
Yeah, I there definitely is a little bit of leap of faith there. I think we live in a great time in which advertising can be, uh, uh, you can start small and scale up, with channels like Facebook or what have you. Like, you don't have to put down a significant amount of money to start. You can test the waters with a small budget and then grow over time. Whereas like maybe 20, 30 years ago, if you wanted to buy that billboard, that might just be 10K up front and there's nothing you can do about it. So, yeah, there's a leap of faith, but I think we're in a great time for advertising. So, it's like less of a big deal, I think.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's very easy to control your spend. You can switch it off. You can put the
that's
number
right.
down, that you want to spend that day. So it's completely controllable. And you said something really, really important by surrounding yourself with more successful people and people who are taking these big actions, because as you said, it normalizes it for you. Whereas if
Hmm.
you're hanging around with people who are thinking really small, that
Hmm.
becomes your normal as well. And you may have grown up in a household where maybe people thought small, or they thought, well, this is as much as we can have in our lives. This is the limit. We can't have anything more than that. So it
Hmm.
does take a big shift to be able to think outside of that.
Oh, totally, totally. I think that's like, I think if you spend so much time around people who are doing like significantly above you, it maybe like it'll create some sort of complex in you. I think like a healthy balance is to spend maybe like 30 to 50% of your time with people who really stretch you, and then the other, uh, 30 to 50% with people who are your peers or slightly even below you, so that way you can, mentor them in a way. It's like just totally different mindsets to adopt. I remember the first time going to a mastermind and hearing someone spending that type of advertising, and just like, um, just just realizing how small I was playing. Like, I felt small in that moment, but I realized it was good. It was stretching me.
I'd love to know, when things didn't work out, because obviously things don't always work out when we're trying
Hmm.
something.
Hmm.
How did you deal with that? Did you feel that that was a failure? Did you personalize it, feel that you were a failure if something didn't work out? And how did that stop you? I mean, so did it stop you, or did you just keep thinking, okay, I can make this work, I can figure this out?
Yeah. So yeah, I have, I'm pretty like, relentless. So I don't think like, like for me, like I have like a punch through the wall mentality. Um, and I also keep reminding myself that, like, what everything in our life that was hard became, and everything in our life that's easy was once like hard,
Mm.
and keeping that in mind, that like, most of these people who are kind of maybe like building the businesses that we want to build and what have you, they're really not that much different than us. And sometimes you have to prove that to yourself by getting around them. Like, people tell you that, and it genuinely is true. In fact, I would say that I've found that a lot of people who have, who are building the businesses that I want to build, etc. When I was like kind of quote unquote coming up, I realized that they actually didn't even have better ideas than me. They just they're systematic, like they're numbers driven, and yeah, other than that, they're just regular people. They're just laying one brick well at a time, and then over time, um, things click for them. it's like any other skill.
So do
So
you
yeah.
believe that's one of the secrets of scaling? Obviously, the mindset, you have to have a mindset that allows you
Mhm,
to think big. But
mhm.
the sort of practical side of it is to have systems and be numbers driven.
I think that's what, yeah, that's, mindset. You have different types of mindsets, right? And all of them serve you in trying to be successful. Um, I think being systems driven is definitely one really important mindset. Like every business that you're building, it can essentially be broken down into components and processes, and you getting like clear on what those components and processes are. What are the seats that need to be filled in order to run those systems and processes? Helps you become kind of like this orchestrator of the business rather than always working in your business in the weeds, right? I think a lot of people like fall into the trap of just like being always in the weeds, never looking at the forest. And so because of that, they don't delegate properly. They don't realize what brick they need to lay next. They're just like putting out the next fire constantly. And so I think that, yeah, that's really key. That's one mindset. A system mindset is key. And then, yeah, the numbers mindset as well. It's like, um, you got to just get clear on what metrics are important for your business and then do the math and then be realistic, be honest with yourself. Like, what is it really going to take to hit these metrics? Is my business model even um, like conducive to meeting my goals? Like if you want to, let's say, do 100K a month in revenue, but you're a sole operator doing a service-based business, you probably like the only lever that you have is maybe to increase your pricing, right? You can't actually reach those goals if you're locked in time. So if you think about if you take your goals, break down the numbers, and then you're assessing the situation, like I don't think I can actually hit using this business model, then that'll um, prompt you to potentially reconfigure your business model. Like maybe you need to productize your service in some fashion or grow your team. Like you start seeing what levers you need to hit to pull in order to actually hit those goals. But it starts with the numbers.
Yeah, and numbers can be, again, a scary thing for many entrepreneurs, or some of them just think, well, I don't do numbers, I'll just see how it goes. But it's like flying by the seat of your pants, isn't it? Because there's no predictability. And without a
Mm-hmm.
system and a process, you're basically just, you're spending a lot of extra time on doing things. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if you have the systems and process, it saves a lot of time. So you can look more at the bigger picture and spend more
Totally.
time there.
And you don't need to be afraid of the numbers because it's actually very, very basic math, right? At the end of the day, it's not calculus. It's not even algebra. It's very basic math. Just and if you're really afraid of it, another really good mindset is do what you do best, delegate the rest, right? Like find the right person to fill that number seat if you're just totally averse to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you were hanging out with these very successful people in the mastermind,
Mm-hmm.
what were the main mindset characteristics did you notice in them that led them to have all of that success? Because as you said, they're not special in that, any more special than any of us.
Mm-hmm.
So what were you picking up from there in terms of their thinking that inspired you to start thinking much bigger?
Yeah, that one, definitely scale. That's one. They just think in scale. They think in big numbers, and then obviously break things down into deciding what that actually is. Like if you set your goal to only like let's say 10K a month, which is fine. It's like a perfectly fine goal. It's actually gonna like dictate like what's your business model, like what industry you get into, what problems you try to solve, and I just think it's actually not thinking big enough. It's perfectly fine if I guess you're first starting out, but if you aim a little bit bigger than that, like you just start you'll start like thinking and trying to identify like bigger opportunities naturally. So and then what else stood out to me about these guys? Mm, I think another thing is like many of these people, I found they found what their unique genius was, like, and I define that as like like you as a human being with your life story, your natural inclinations and skill sets, like there's certain things in this world that you're just better suited to do than most people out there, you know. Like for me, let's say I'm just like a naturally systems thinker. It's very easy for me to take a very complex subject and like break it down into its components. So that makes me naturally inclined to do operations. Other people might just be a little bit more scattered, but they are just natural promoters, right? And so identifying what that is and really becoming like next level at that sets you up for a lot of opportunities, because it sets you up for partnerships. It sets you up for just, maybe even selling that particular skill set. I think that's key because, growing up, our education system try to put you in boxes and they kind of like set you on preordained paths, and you kind of lose that self-awareness. So I found that a lot of these people, like they realize like, okay, I'm just like not good at maybe the numbers thing, but I'm like really, really good at like product, or I'm really, really good at marketing. And they just got really good at that. And then they'd go into these networking events with that in their back pocket. And then people would be like, oh, I need this person. I'm good at this, you're good at that. Boom. They form partnerships, and then they create like amazing synergy. And then obviously they're off to the races. So that's like another thing, just like finding that unique genius and really doubling down on it.
It's having a confidence, isn't it? It's having a confidence in yourself that, whatever happens, you can do it, that, it's possible for you.
Yeah, for sure. That's table stakes, I think, to have that level of confidence in yourself, or at least just the belief that, okay, this thing that is hard for me right now is going to get easy if I just keep putting the work.
So what was some of the things that you wish you'd known when you first started your first business?
I wish, I wish I read this book called Unscripted by MJ DeMarco. It's definitely like one of my favorite business books. And if that's the only thing you got out of this podcast, I think it would have been worth the listen. I think when I got started, there were like all these different courses and things like that, teaching you different types of business models and etc. And it was very easy to like get sucked into the hype of those particular business models. Like, oh, you need to be a real estate investor. You need to like do internet marketing. You need to do Facebook. You need to do that. No, you don't need to do any of that. What you need to do is understand the underlying like principles for why these businesses work. Like, why are people successful? Like, what is that underlying driving forces? And I think in that book, MJ just does a great job in giving you a framework for like identifying why a business is good and why it's bad, and what to really look for in a good business model and business, how to make choices. Because like at the end of the day, like nobody's going to sit over your shoulder and help you make decisions every single moment. And every single moment, you have the opportunity to make, I don't know, potentially an infinite number of choices, right? So the only way that you're going to make a series of successful choices that will lead to success is if you have the right mindset and you're like processing the world in a productive way, right? And so in order to do that, you need a good framework. And that's exactly what's in this book. I just wish I read it when I was just starting out. It would have saved me a lot of time.
Yeah, shortened that learning curve. So can you share a particular principle from that book that really resonated with you and helped you?
Yeah, I mean, he talks about this framework called sense, which is like, what are the specific things that you want to look for in a business model? Sense stands for control, entry, need, time, and scale. And I won't get into all of those, but like that's like an example of like a framework, right? Like, so if you're looking at your business and you're trying to configure in a way that's successful, you might put it through that framework. Like, does it meet the commandment of control? Does it meet the commandment of entry? So on and so forth. So I'll just leave it at that and highly, highly recommend everybody read that book.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. I'm sure a lot of people will be going out and buying that. Any other business books have been pivotal in shaping your mindset?
Oh, absolutely. So Secrets of the Millionaire Mind
Hmm.
by T. Harv Eker, Power of Now. This is more of a spiritual one,
Oh,
but
yes,
I found it
yes.
very
It's a
impactful.
wonderful book. I absolutely love it.
Indeed. Yeah. And a close, I guess, cousin to that is The Untethered Soul.
Oh,
So
yes.
both of those are really good, just because business can be stressful, and you know, having like some sort of spiritual practice or grounding practice is important. But more like mindset and personal development related. Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, Seven
Hmm.
Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, Living an Inspired Life by Jim Rohn. I think that's what it's still named, but any type of Jim Rohn material I think is really amazing for mindset. Um, and then another slightly more practical one. I mean, all of these are practical, but this one, I guess, it gives you like more like operational type of chops. Is Work the System by Sam Carpenter, um, Traction by Gino Wickman, and E-Myth by, I believe, Michael Gerber.
Yeah, yeah. I've read a few of those, and they're
Yeah,
absolutely excellent. Your recommendation list is brilliant.
thank you.
So, why do you think that mindset is so important for success? Because you think, well, logically, if I just do this in my business, then I'll be fine. I don't have to be a positive thinker in particular.
Mm.
It can all come to me. Why do you think that mindset is such an essential component for entrepreneurs to really think about and to work on?
Yeah, I like to think about mindset as like literally the soil for where your success grows. Like it's not everything, right? Like you don't have a plant by just having soil, but if you don't have it, you're just not even in the game, because without the right mindset, which I see it as like the way of like viewing and interpreting the world and your internal world, you can't make the right choices. You probably make the bad choices. You like, yeah, ultimately, I guess that's what it comes down to. It just you don't get the right thoughts if you don't have the right mindset, which leads you to make bad choices, which leads you to have bad results, right? Like everything, all of your thoughts and your emotions and your choices and your actions and your results are stemming from like this overarching thing called your mindset. And so when if you tweak a little bit of your mindset, then the rest will kind of waterfall.
Yeah, absolutely. The quality of your decisions depends on the quality of your thinking. And if your
Totally.
thinking isn't productive, you're not going to make productive choices. You're going to make very limited, scaled down choices in life based on fear.
Absolutely.
And if you have a
Yep. Yep.
productive mindset, you can be making inspired type choices, and you can really spread your wings and see how much you can achieve in life. Really, really go for it. So I completely
Totally.
agree with you on that.
Hmm.
So, in terms of design, you are a design guru. You've done some amazing work. What would be your top tip that you can share with our listeners about website design? What's the one thing they could implement in their website to make it much more effective?
Yeah. So I'll answer this in a very tactical way, but also
Mhm.
speak to like maybe the mindset as well, since
Sure.
we're talking about that. From a very technical point of view, I think structuring your content like a sales letter is like one tweak that almost every website maker can do. Most people they're just like kind of putting things up, kind of like a glorified online business card, but you want to think about like first the content, like how is this messaging flowing? So it's like a sales letter, and then taking that raw content and turning into a design. And so if someone lands on the site, it looks like every other site, but in reality, you're actually walking them through like an emotional slash sales journey, right? That's how we build all our client sites. Um, and then from a mindset point of view, um, I think like thinking about like a lot of people think about their website as an expense, but you want to think about it as like a frame. Like everybody who's going to engage with your business is going to look at your site, and how your site is going to dictate how they view all the other interactions they have with you. It's like in psychology they call it a frame, right? So how polished and impactful your website is setting the tone and literally influencing how they perceive all your other marketing to them. So that's why it's important.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Thank you. There's a really great top tip in there. So,
Thanks.
Larry, how can our listeners and our viewers find out more about you and the incredible work you're doing?
Yeah. So if they could just go to, pinnaclebrands.agency and get in touch with us there via the contact form. And I think that's probably the best place to engage with our agency and with me.
Brilliant. And I would encourage everyone to take a look at the website, because there's some beautiful designs there from your portfolio, and the level of the design work is absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom on mindset, and it's been absolutely inspiring. I've learned a lot from it, and some great books to go out and look at as well, and particularly your favorite that you shared with us. And for everyone who's been watching and listening, I hope you learned a lot. And thank you so much for being here, Larry. And thank you everyone for joining us. Till next time. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.